Welcome back to House Guest with me, Hailey Fennel. I'm a psychic medium, and this is the podcast that connects you to the other side. You're about to listen to part 2 of an episode with Courteney Salsbury Bechtel, who is the who is the owner and founder of Pax Supply, which is a Charleston-based merch company. You can follow her at Pax Supply on Instagram or head straight to her website at pax-supply.com. Courteney, it was so much fun talking with you, and I cannot wait for our listeners to hear this end of it, where we kind of get into more of a conversation about the reading and even more about how to connect in for yourself. Please subscribe, send this to a friend so that they can get some of that connection information as well. I would really, really appreciate it. And super quickly, if you are interested in being a part of a research project between me and College of Charleston, I am offering readings that will be on the podcast, but they work a little bit differently. The only thing is I have to not know you. So if I don't know you, but you have been wanting a reading, it's completely free. Just email me at hailey@haileyfennel.com, and I cannot wait to get you in there. You're going to be a part of something pretty cool. I'm really lit up by it. I'll send you more information on it, and then the whole community will know about it soon. But let's see. Last thing is I have an event coming up with Candlefish on March 20th for spring equinox. We just did one for winter solstice, and it was so much fun. It's going to be a group reading with me, and then it leads into candle making with the experts at Candlefish. But I will still be there, and I can help you guys pick out some scents and give you some tips on how to make a candle that is going to help you connect in with either the people that we pulled forward that evening that you got messages from, or somebody that you've really wanted to connect in with before. So make sure to check that out. You can go to their website. We'll put that in the show notes. They're also at Candlefish on Instagram, and they have a link in their bio. Thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoy. Please subscribe, send to a friend. And thank you, Courteney, for coming on. This is one of my favorite conversations that we've had on the podcast so far. And I know that I've been talking for a while, and I promise I'm going to let you guys enjoy it soon. But if you are looking to be on the podcast, if you're a local creator and this piques your interest in any way, please feel free to reach out to me. We are turning the podcast into more of a conversation. We'll still have some readings in there, but there's some more coming. I'm really excited to share it all with y'all. Thank you again, Courteney, and I hope that all of you enjoy. There's a big hi and a hug to Mom.
Oh.
Okay, I think it's your uncle that's going to step forward first. Your grandmother's being very, oh, fine, lovely, good, very giving is what she says. And she's like, I'm fine. I'm here to help lead the reading is how she puts it. She does touch the back of my neck real quick as though she's guide to you. That's always a sign for me of can you just tell Courteney that I am guide to her? I think when we start talking about career, she might quite possibly pop in a little bit closer. But she's letting uncle go first. Your uncle. Lovely, good. Okay, hold on. He says we're close, Courteney and I are close. Okay, that's a little funny. A little bit offended that you didn't say that. But he's joking. He's showing a little bit.
Not just with Mark, but with Courteney too.
He's I'm close with you too. Excuse me very, very much. I'm there. Close with family, really, but also in a different sense than your dad, but also a little bit of a jokester. And maybe even a little flirtatious is how he puts it with older women. His generation is how he puts it. Does that make sense? Not, okay, fine. Hold on. He's you better clarify that for people listening. he's not, okay, hold on. I'll get the right word for it. Because I understand him to be married. Does that make sense to you? So he's you better correct that. More flirtatious, but taken sort of feeling. I'm trying to think of the right words. He's
I feel
not.
I come from a long line of just partiers.
He's I'm just fun. I just want people to loosen up. I just want I'm also like friendly with women, but would never like do anything.
Yes,
That's kind of how he puts it. He's like, don't put that on my life. This is very like got strict with me all of a sudden. I was like, I didn't mean it that way. And to do him justice, I needed to make that clear.
Yes.
Okay.
I love that.
Okay. Like he just got a little nervous. Okay, good. All right, hold on. He's coming in a little bit closer. He's like, love to everyone, love to the whole family. Like, I also like just loved being around family and friends and everyone. But he's like, you could see me as someone that like loved a lot of people, but I really did like in a different way, really like loved my family.
Yes.
That's how he puts it. Like he understands that his passing has been a great loss. He gets a little egotistical about that. He's like, it's a great loss that I'm not there. But then he gets serious about it at the same time. And he's like, no, really, like it's been pretty hard for the family. And there's some things that I left undone. And he kind of starts to go through paperwork. And he's like, that people have had to like pick up the slack on. Does that make sense to you? You might not know about it, or you might, but does it make sense in some way?
I think my cousin had a brain aneurysm when he was in his 30s. And so my uncle kind of took care of him a lot. Okay. And so his other son is doing everything. And I think really wants to make sure that my cousin is also okay and taken care of now.
Okay, so it's like sifting through, having to sift through stuff. Yeah. This is like documents, like he's like, Hailey, you wouldn't even understand sort of thing. I'm like, got it. But he goes, I want people to know that like I'm there, I'm helping with it. Oh, good. He says that he was like organized enough, but maybe not the most organized person. So he's like, there's just like saved documents. He's like that your generation would never save sort of thing. So it's like a lot of throwing out. Yes. Sort of thing. Yeah. So very lightly. And he's just like, I'm sorry for that, but I am going to like come in and help with that. Oh, like good. What's important, what's not. He just kind of makes two different piles. Okay, hold on. He also just goes, I just want everyone to know that like I enjoyed doing everything though. Like I enjoyed doing a lot for everyone around me. Like it just filled him up. He liked being asked for help. Like,
he was so that way.
Yeah. He was very like sweet.
Yes, perfect word.
Yeah. Oh, okay, hold on. He also kind of calls himself like a simple guy too. Yeah. Like he's like, I enjoyed being around all these people, but I was also just like, he's like, I just loved waking up in the morning, having, I think it's like a coffee and a croissant, or a coffee and like something that would feel like, to me, feeling like having a croissant would be like such an indulgent thing to have in the morning. But he's like that. And then I go on my day and I have my schedule and I get to see my friends. And he's like, it's those like simple things. Yeah. He's like that I miss most about life. Oh. He's like, and just like, okay, hold on. And like checking in on people, he kind of picks up the phone and checks in on people. And then he like starts to check off his to-do list. He's like, I just enjoyed my days. Like it, okay, and the ability to do that is how he puts it. He's like, as though maybe towards the end he like lost the ability to do some of those things. Does that make sense to you? Okay, hold on. Do you understand like a shaky hand or something?
Yeah, he got sick. His wife passed away and my grandma passed away close, and then he kind of just did after them. And I think we all thought, you know, they had such a great love. It's like, can't imagine him going on without her, you know, and then he kind of passed quickly after her. Okay. And he got sick and with cancer. And it was just one of those, you know, like, it's like a 6-month cancer. Okay. So I think at the end he got really sick and my cousin had to come in and I think kind of like take over everything. Yeah. But he was kind of like, he had, you know, different accounts and a lot of things that my cousin had to like jump in and take care of and like take over and be responsible for. Yeah. So I think what you're touching on is that he took care of everyone. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then at the end couldn't, I think. And he was that way.
I like that. I mean, and I think that's what he's trying to say, like, that's what I enjoyed. He's
Yeah.
taking care of everyone. And he starts to like shake his hand a little bit, but he's like, and then I just couldn't finish my checklist or like, but that would have been something he would have like enjoyed in life. But he does. I like sitting with him. He actually feels quite comfortable energetically. Like when he shows me who he was in life, I'm like, oh,
so
I
sweet.
could like sit and hang out with you just for an hour, read a book.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for him? And I hear you say, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I hear you say that his wife is on the other side too.
Yes.
She's there, of course. For some reason, I just didn't pick up on her.
Yeah.
But I like that they're together. Like the minute you mentioned her, I'm like, ooh, like that's interesting. It's like, well, of course, like here we are. And so I didn't mean to like leave her out, but just to let you know. Yeah.
No, thanks. I'm glad that they're together.
Yeah. Do you have any questions for him or her?
I don't think so.
Okay. I'm going to jump to grandmother real quick because she's been very, very patient this whole thing.
That's my...
I do feel as though she could come in and talk a lot about career stuff. So when the time comes, feel free to ask those questions.
Okay.
But what I'm going to do is close my eyes just for a little bit. Okay. Okay, hold on. She's coming in a little bit different than I expected her to, which I would normally not say this sort of stuff out loud, but I'm going to. I'm like, oh, you like all of a sudden she started to share her energy with me, and she's different than I expected her to. And it was this very nice reminder of we can have these expectations of what people are like in life, and they rarely meet them, right? Like people are rarely like who they seem to be at first.
Yeah.
So at first, and she is this, to be clear, she's like guide to you, and she feels so light and lovely because she keeps coming at me from this sort of angle, which is always, this is who I am on the other side. Like she's showing me like, this is who I am on the other side. When she comes a little bit closer to me, she starts talking about her as like a very young child.
Oh.
And she's like, well, but my life is different than how I ended up being. And she's like, I had to go through some hardship to get to where I was.
Oh yeah.
And she's like, but gosh, when I like got to the turning point for myself, she was like, she can admit that she's like a lovely person and a go-getter and like a very, she calls herself like a strong woman, but also like she gives me this vision of lavender and this softness at the same time. Does that make sense to you?
Oh yeah.
And then she's like, it took, okay, fine. Getting over hurdles in childhood to get there.
Yeah.
And I think she does reference like big hurdles. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm going to have her come a little bit closer. She just wants to start off that way for some reason. Okay, lovely, good. She's like, but when I get to be in Courtney's life, so then she just kind of switches to like a different phase of life. Okay, lovely, good. Phase or age, either way. And she's like, I get to enjoy the closeness of family, is how she puts it. And she's like, do you understand her? It's a little bit different. Do you understand her being close with you, Courtney? Is how she puts it, but maybe not as close with some other family members. She's a little picky choosy there. Does that make sense?
Oh, maybe.
That's okay. You can say no if you don't understand that. It's a little bit like, I feel like she loves your mom. Like she's there for your mom, but it's almost like she gets closer with you than she did with mom. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you, how does that make sense to you?
Yeah, we're really close. Okay. I guess to kind of describe that hurdle part, like my grandma moved here from England after the war. So she was in World War II.
Oh, wow.
And she was in a land army. She was like total badass, but also really soft and sweet and lovely. So it's like, I could see how you're saying like she had to overcome so much and then had this family life. And then she had my mom here in the States like 9 years after she'd had my aunt and uncle. So I think my mom was like a oopsie doopsie. And then my mom had like 4 girls.
Yeah.
So she totally helped raise us.
Oh, I love that.
And she lived in the same town as us, but like none of my cousins did. So, but I was really close with her.
I love that.
Yeah, of the 4 of us. You know, I mean, we all were, but like I was really close with her.
Yeah. I'm going to this is like a C for me.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I can understand like we're talking about Courtney. And then this is also, for some reason, mom's right here. So she's like, this is me. This is meeting up with Courtney. and then this is mom. And so I don't know what that means. So I'm
Yeah.
like, ooh, is it that like you're closer with Courtney than mom? Or is it that?
Well, probably because my mom's crazy and she's like, she's like, you needed me.
Here, it's a little like I'm bypassing mom to
Yeah.
you sort of feeling.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I love that. So the C could be for crazy as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. We'd be like, oh, like, you know,
Yeah.
I remember when like a funny story is like telling her when I was like in my 20s, like, what if I'm gonna be crazy like mom, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And she was like, oh no, you're not gonna be crazy like mom. Like, your mother was crazy like way before now, and we would have known
now.
before. Yeah, we would
We
know.
would know.
Yeah, we would know that you were crazy by now. And I'm like, what? So it's like we had
So
this like
good.
funny dynamic of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that
love
makes
it.
sense to me because it's like you and I were like this, and we know that your mom was crazy.
Oh, okay.
You know
Good.
what I mean?
Good. I was like, I like that it makes as long as it makes more sense to you than it does to me, it's
Yeah.
perfection. That really cracks me up. It's like our biggest fear, right? To like,
Oh,
am I
totally.
like my mom?
Am I
like my mom? Fuck. Am I like my mom?
Yes.
Sorry, mom. Apparently she does sometimes listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
It's fair though. She'll like all of a sudden text me and be like, I listened to 6 episodes.
Yeah.
It's like,
And I
that's a
heard you
lot.
call me crazy.
I know. Yeah, we'll see how good she listens to them.
Yeah.
We'll know soon, Janie. Okay, let's see. Hold on. I'm gonna sink back into that. I feel the need to say, I'm just kidding, Mom. Just kidding. Okay. All right. Okay, hold on. Your grandmother's coming back in. She left space for that nice little conversation. Okay, lovely, good. She goes, C is also for career. She does that like very
She's like,
abruptly.
no.
She's like, yeah, we're going to get back on topic now. And she's a little bit like that. She's like, we're going to get back on topic. It's in a very kind way. She makes me feel very comfortable but attentive sitting with her, and especially when she wants to get something done, and she's like, I have passed that on to Courtney as well. Like when you have like a task to do, you take it head on and you're very attentive towards it, and almost like you know when you're like attentive towards a child's needs, and it's like you're attentive but you're also trying to be like so caring about it too. Yeah. She says that that's how you treat your career as well. It's like you're attentive, intentional, and being like just careful enough with it is how she puts it. And then there's a little bit of, but it's time to be a little less careful around career is how she puts it. Like this is like we've taken some risk and we are about to start taking the bigger risks to move things along. And the way she moves things along feels as though she's coming in at my heart center. She's like the things that we've been like even more caring about or thinking about, or it's like so close to our heart center that it almost makes us a little bit nervous to put it out there into the world. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
And maybe even more personal. She just gave me that word, like a personal project that's about to be a public project. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you have any questions around that?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like it's funny that she would be the one that comes forward, because I was talking to my husband last night about like what I wanted to say to you about career. Because I'm like, it's just when you become a mother, it's like everything has to be almost equally as important or more important that you want to be pulled away from them for. Yeah. And you don't know until you know. And then you're in it and you're like, I can't be working this much. Or, you know, I can't not see my kids as much. And you're so pulled a million ways. And it's this, I don't think everyone has this, but I have this like terrible guilt. Yeah. But also I think because I had a crazy mother and I don't want to be crazy like her. So I'm like, I have to be a good mom. You know, like it's like in me that I think a lot of people don't have. Right. Yeah. So I do. And I have that confliction all the time. Like, what should I do? And I've done product development for so long now for other companies and made other companies really successful and a lot of money. And then now I'm like, I should just do it for myself. You know, I should do my own thing. But then that's so scary and intimidating and overwhelming. And I'm navigating that right now where it's like, what do I do that's for me and not for my ego? You know what I mean? That isn't for like to prove that I can be this thing. But what I really want to do and then is important enough to like pull me away from the kids.
Yeah. So sometimes all of that is just a perspective shift, right? And like I struggle with this too. And I think more people struggle with it than we think. Like even if we had the best moms in the world, sometimes like the constant thought is like, am I like her though?
Yes.
You know?
Or as good as her, you know? Like my mother-in-law is incredible. I'm like, I'm gonna have to be that great of a grandma someday.
To be that good or like that path. I mean, of course the answer is, I know that you already know this, is like our path is our path, right? Like we're alike and not alike, and we're supposed to see it and not see it in all the right ways and at the right times. And I know that that's kind of condensed, and it might take a moment for some people to really think about that, and that's fine. You can go back to that little segment. But the point is that when we get into questions like, I'm having your grandmother kind of come close at the same time. When we get into questions like, how am I supposed to, like, what's the thing that's so important that it's the thing I'm supposed to do that's going to take time away from kids, or this other like equal want. Hold on. I got to write this one part down. Okay. Hold on. I'm going to go back to that. It's like just comes down to like a switch of perspective of, okay, so that's kind of old paradigm thinking, which I know is like a little bit of a hot phrase right now in this world. But what I mean by that, it's like an old way. It's just an easier way of saying that is like, it's just an old way of thinking, right? Yeah. So it's like this old way of like, well, people that work don't get to have as much time with their kids, right? Like moms, like let's get more specific. Moms at work, don't get to have as much time with their kids. And so the only thing that we can do from there is like really switch it up in our heads. Be like, wait a minute, how can I truly start to believe over time that I'm a working mom and I still get to have just as much time with my kids, or I still get to do those things, or, something even better, because sometimes there's like a reality to this too. And I hear myself hesitating because I'm like a million thoughts just came in of like, well, there's a reality of like, there are some moms that like have to work and they like literally don't have the time that they want to spend with their kids. But we can kind of do this game where we start to change our perspective a little bit of like, okay, so if I have to work these many hours, how can I get it to where I want to work this many hours? And like maybe the time that we spend with our kids, how can I make the time that I do have there feel better? And that's just a starting point. For parents, I'm going to switch it to parents that feel like they have to do that, right? But then there's like these situations where we get into, okay, there's this like thing that I want to do career-wise. Your grandmother's coming back in. She's like, let's talk about more like Courteney, career-wise for Courteney, where, hold on, I'm going to close my eyes for a second. Where we want to get into these new things because we have like a true desire and interest to do them. Yeah. And then the fear is that we think it's going to take away from this other thing that we want to. Yeah. And your grandmother comes in and she's like, it won't. Like it's actually going to energize so many other parts of your life that you're going to get this back times 10 is how she puts it. So she's like, how can we just start to believe that at least a possibility of it being equal is how she puts it. Right. Even if we have to pretend at first. And so anyone listening is going to have to like alter this for their own world, but I'm going to just focus on you, Courteney, for a second. Hold on. I'm going to close my eyes. Okay, hold on. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a few questions. And they're going to be kind of hard to answer.
Yeah, I know. I'm ready.
Or maybe they're easy. So there's this thing that you want to do, and just correct me if I'm hearing you right. And you're afraid that it's going to take family time away. Yeah. Because you're afraid that it's like, what it feels like to me is like this, and a little bit from what you're saying too, it's like this new project there's going to be, and it's a lot more to do with what you actually want to do for yourself. Like a business that's more about you, right? Yeah. Or takes more time from you. Is that right? But it's what you want, right? Yeah. And is it like an interest of yours? Where you're like, and if I were to say, and this is truly hypothetical and coming from me, I mean, your grandmother's like helping guide this, but for this question, it's important that you know that this is, I'm trying to like bounce something off of you so that you have like a realization. What if I were to say, don't be interested in that? Yeah. Like, how does that feel?
I mean, I guess the immediate feeling is like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Right. It's like, well, shit, like,
Yeah.
don't be interested in that. Like, right. So like that is how we play with our yeses and nos, or the universe, or whatever you want to
I
call
love
it.
that exercise.
So if I were to say, don't be interested in that, and you're like, shoot, like I thought that
Yes.
was it. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, because your soul is literally like at this moment screaming at you to and at me to be like, can you please just tell her that her interests are leading her to clarity. Her interests, like, and that's for everyone. Like our interests are always leading us on a path to where we need to be, to where we want to be, which is even more important. So then if I were to say, oh, you're supposed to be interested in this because you're supposed to take the next action step to get to the direction that you're meant to take, how does that feel?
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have this like interest in whatever it is, like in your head. And it might even sometimes feel like we have this interest and it's right here. It's like a heart center. It's like, I know that I have this interest. And then I kind of sort of have this vision of where it's going to lead out here. The universe, our souls, our guides, whatever you want to call it, those on the other side, put that vision out there on purpose because they're trying as hard as they can to give us a direction to take, or to give us like, to make us just excited enough to take the first step. And then when we take those first step or 10, the vision starts to change or it gets fuzzy again. If it's getting fuzzy again, it's only because it's changing to something greater. And we just have to be brave enough to keep going towards it. Now, sometimes it pivots. Sometimes we're given a vision. Like, for example, I thought I was going to be an astrologer at like a very quick second. And so I had this vision of being what an astrologer would look like for me. And then I started going in that direction, and then it pivoted to something even greater for me.
Right.
And I'm not saying that what I do is greater than astrology. I'm saying that for me, what I do is greater than astrology. And that is like how they're playing with us. And then your grandmother just said this to me, which is very helpful from her. She was like, and right, like you're a psychic medium right now. I still have a vision. It's not like my vision's done. Yeah. It's fuzzy for me right now. I don't know like what it is quite yet, but I do like have these little teeny tiny steps that I need to take to make it more clear because they interest me. And that's it. That's all it is. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God, it's fun. This is why like months ago, I was like, I need to have a reading with you because I listened to one of your podcasts and I was like, oh, I love when you talked about like career and like, what does that mean? And what should I do? And like spirit guides can guide us or loved ones on the other side. And, this is a new business that I would do with a friend. Yeah. And, I really care about women's, skincare and just like daily products, right? That have ingredients that we shouldn't be using. And this would be, a product line on that note, which I do care about. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that all makes sense. Yeah. I think it's perfect. And then sometimes we get into this thing. This is a thing I wrote down that I was like, I want to jump back into this. Sometimes we get afraid that it's our ego talking. Yes. Or like, why do you have to start a line and like have
like this and put my name on it and do this thing? This is because you're supposed to, because you're meant to, because our ego plays just as equal of a role in how we live this life as our soul, as whatever other thing you want to throw in there. The only time we don't want to use our ego is when it is stopping us from doing the big brave thing or from connecting into ourselves. People have heard me say this on the podcast before. If we're hearing fearful messages like, don't do that, it's dumb, it's going to fail, you're going to waste your money, that's your ego talking too. Right. The good part of our ego are the ones that are like, wait, but this is cool. It would be cool to put your name on it. It would be cool to put your like face out there and say, this is Courtney's brand. This is Courtney's product. That's actually just like a positive ego thing. Like we get to play with that. We can also like want the big things like the different house, the car, the clothes, the shoes. And I know that's not for everybody, but like sometimes people make themselves like, they're kind of like dulling themselves down when they're like, oh, but I shouldn't. I should like want for nothing. And I said, there's a difference. There's somebody that like truly wants nothing because it oddly lights them up. And then there's people that like truly want something. And when they don't allow themselves to have it, it dulls them down. Yeah. So we're all born into this world with this different sort of makeup. And, if the job and the career is something that every time you think about it, and you literally can't stop thinking about it and it lights you up, feels like you're like, oh, but that's just my ego talking. Like, don't you get kind of dulled when you put it down like that?
Yes.
Where it's like, oh shoot, that's my ego
that
talking.
energy is so
like,
real.
You can say it two different ways, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's my ego talking. I think I'm going to listen to it for a little bit and see where it goes. There's also something else in there that can like start to feel really palpable when we play with it that way. Like I'm going to follow my ego on a low risk thing and see how it feels. Does it give me more energy or does it give me less? And then this is something that like we all do, especially as parents. We're like, but if I start to do all of this stuff, it's going to take away from this other thing that like I'm really enjoying. Like I'm currently, and I think Lindsay and Courtney, you guys probably agree, like we're currently in a mom stage where ages are really fun.
Yeah.
Like it's such a fun age. Like things are a little bit easier. They're not teenage hard yet.
Yes.
It's just like a fun age. So it's like there's a fear of like, let's not put too much more on my plate.
Yeah. And
so that I miss out on that. But here's what happens. So when you go back to that thing of like, should I follow through on this thing or not? When you don't follow through on it, your energy is dulled and things can keep going kind of how it's going, which is good and great and fine. Or we can follow through on the energy and accept that it gives us more energy.
Yeah.
And energy is not a finite thing. Like we get more energy and then we give more energy to our kids.
Yep.
Like, and then they get to see us following through. And I know everyone has heard this before, but like, of course, kids seeing us follow through on the things are like just as important for them. And then also like they chose us as their parents, knowing that this could possibly be a path that you take, and you being lit up and having energy to quote unquote do it all. Is going to show them a completely different possibility than we were shown when we were children. Like we're currently in a stage of the universe where people are starting to do this, right? Like we have like a ton of friends that are switching up their jobs or their lives in different ways when and where possible and at whatever timeline possible. And we see them getting energy back. Like and energy and time are very human things here in life. Like there's a different tuck of energy. You could say spirits are energy. That's a different meaning. But like when we feel energy, it's us being more connected to our own soul. Yeah. So when we get that, we become closer with our own soul, which is just like closer with the direction of life that we have decided for ourselves.
Yeah.
So I say all that to say, don't fear your ego, and also don't fear at least trying to take those next few steps into this thing and just watch energy come your way and have just as much time with your children or more quality time with your children.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. Such good advice.
I hope so.
It is.
Do you have any questions around that?
Yeah. I mean, this is like exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. So I'm so excited. I also have my nanny, that's my grandma. I put this in my pocket today because I was like, oh, I hope she comes through in a reading. This is she gave me this for my wedding.
I love
but I'm like,
that.
oh, I love that she's like the one guiding me because I have my own company that I started. So this would be like a second company. Yeah. And I think, my husband has a big job as well. And so I think sometimes he's like, what do you have to do all this stuff? You're like, who's this for? And then I can get in my own head like, yeah, who is this for? And to hear like, oh, it's just for me. Like I have a soul and a purpose and a journey and all these things. And I can still be a good mom and, build a business.
Yeah.
And
sometimes the people closest with us are the ones that bounce off that idea of what would it feel like to dull it down. And I'm not trying to be like hard on them. It's actually like a very important role, and it comes out of like such a deep sense of love. My partner does the same thing of like, yeah, but like things are going great right now. I'm like, yeah, but like I have this knowing of something different.
Yes.
And I can't help it. Like it won't go away. And so sometimes they're just kind of like reverberating the thoughts that we have that are the no's. Like, and it's like, oh, it's so interesting to hear that out loud. Yeah. How can I say like, I'm trying to find the right words, but it's my grandmother come in. Sometimes in those moments, it's like because, well, fine. Sometimes in those moments, she's like, well, it's really easy, Hailey. Like, it's so much more simple than we think. Because in those moments when we hear that from our partner, we have an immediate, like, because I want to. Like,
that's like, that's your exercise you just did. It is kind of like, well, it feels bad to give it up as you're saying this right now. And there's your yes or your no.
And we like had literally just asked for clarity on it. Like, hey, grandma, hey, dad, hey, uncle, like, can you, I like Nanny. Hey, Nanny. She's like, calling me Nanny. Can you give me, like, am I supposed to follow through on this thing? And then husband's like, don't. And you're like, oh, shoot, but I really want to do.
Yeah.
Like, listen to the little voice.
Totally.
Right? And it's like, and then make that little voice bigger of like, oh, but I want to.
Yes.
Like, I just want to. And that the want and the interest are good enough for now to go. And then all of a sudden, like, once we take the steps, it won't be easy. Like, businesses are challenging. The things that we want in life, the things that are like really, truly worth it usually are, right? So it's not like it's not like I'm saying it's like, oh yes, go for it. It's gonna be like so easy from here on out. In fact, if I said that, I think you might be a little bit bored. It's like, go for it. There's gonna be challenges along the way, and it's gonna be really cool on the other end of it. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. And my husband's so supportive. Like, that's the great thing. Yeah. But with him, it's like last night I was like, it's kind of like skiing. It's like, you know, you're going to fall when you ski, and you don't leave the ski trip going like, next year I'm not going to go because I fell 3 times this year. You're like, oh, that's just what happens when you ski. Yeah. You know, I keep thinking about that. It's like, yeah, it's going to be hard, or, you know, there's going to be setbacks or whatever and lessons to learn, but that is kind of the fun part. Yeah. Because then you apply them to future things, and it's, you know. Yeah. And we have long lives. Like, you know, my mother-in-law's in her 70s still working because she loves it.
Yeah, that's right. It's like we have long lives, and like we don't need the vision right now. I mean, sometimes I think this is where people make the mistake, and not you by any means, because
I make mistakes.
It's just not you. Well, no, like we have this vision, and because we can't get there right away, we don't go for it. Yeah. Right? Like it feels like this is how far away it feels. Our vision sometimes can feel so far away. Like I'm reaching for it. It's not like right there. It's like even further than that. And this is for me, and I'm like, I should just like that's gonna take too long or whatever. Yeah. For time is like we can play with time. That's like a privilege that we get as just humans. And the more actions we take in time, the time can shorten. But it's like, well, the vision isn't the thing. The vision is there so that you start moving towards it. Right. Like that's it. We can't even like perceive, how great or grand the end could be. And someone in my ear, I don't know, someone in my ear just said, and there's also like no end, is how they put it. It's like we keep reaching for an end that doesn't exist. It's there's just no end. Hold on, let me get into that. But yeah, it's like I could say this again and again and again, but it is really important just to hear. It's like we just keep following like the interest that's right in front of us. Yeah. Now sometimes I'm gonna say that fine. Sometimes we can have like so many different interests in front of us that it's like hard to pick and choose which one. I have done this practice before. Sometimes like I'll think of like a million different things that I want. Then I'm like, oh, I could do that, or that's a great idea, or this is a great idea. Sometimes this helps and sometimes I really have to think about it, but I can be like, oh, is that something that I really just want to like exist in my life and I want somebody else to create and it just like be here by this time next year or next month or whatever. Like the product you're creating, like, I would love that. I would like it to exist for me and me have nothing to do with it actually, even if I could like maybe kind of tap into it or think about it. Totally. Versus, oh, this is for me. This is something I want to stick to. Even if it's not technically related to psychic mediumship, I think that there's something in here that is my idea and mine, and I'm going to claim it for me. Yeah. So we get to do that. We can be like, oh, okay, that idea I'm going to push out, and then this idea I'm going to focus on. Yeah. Sort of thing. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
I love it. I feel like people think of psychic mediumship and they just think of like if you've lost someone and there's that way of connecting. But for me, and like what I reached out to you for is like, I love using it for like kind of like nodding to this thing that you're thinking of or aspiring towards or, you know, whatever it is. And then just kind of like working it out, and then it kind of it is like a reassurance.
Yeah. I mean, it's like careers, occasionally relationships, and there's like the relationships is like a different nuance to it. But I usually find that relationships start to work out or manifest if we focus on something different, like career. But careers are one of my favorite things to talk about in mediumship, and just like messages in general. Yeah. I'll say this sometimes in a reading. I'm like, I'm going to show you who's there on the other side, but I'm also going to pretty quickly jump to the messages, because that's why they're here. Yeah. They're not here just to like prove that they're there on the other side, though occasionally I will get someone in that just needs that. Like they just need the proof that there's like life after this or energy after this or whatever. But for the most part, we have people on the other side knowing that we have questions like that we want answers for. The tricky part is like the answers also come from within, and then we are the ones that have to take the action. And so it's much less like your grandmother isn't coming in and being like, you're supposed to do X, Y, and Z because your life is supposed to end up here. Yeah. It's more like we go into something like this or life in general and just go, I'm going to figure out what it is that I want, and they're going to help us find a direction to take. Yeah. Or help give us the confidence to do it. They're like, we'll help guide you, but we can't tell you what you want because you get to decide that. Yeah. But the moment we decide what we want, even if it's just for the interim, is when we get a direction to take. And then the moment we take that, it evolves and grows and so on. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions for Grandma? Nanny?
I think my dad, my uncle, my grandma they all love my husband, Aaron. And I was thinking too, I'm like, I should ask if there's any messages for him, that I should think about him too. Yeah. And pass them along.
I love that. And I like that you like acknowledge that too, because there's like anyone that shows up in a reading kind of comes for the people around us too. Yeah. So hold on, I'm just gonna close my eyes. Okay, hold on. I might be quiet for a little bit. You said his name's Aaron, right? Mm-hmm. They call him like, oh yeah, okay, lovely, good. Hold on. They call him like steady and steadfast. Mm-hmm. And then they give me this like, it's a little bit like they are coming in close to him and showing me how much they love him. These are people from like your side, like the people I've already called forward. They're like, oh, like we love him so much. They also point out like this very peculiar sense of humor is what they call it. And it's like unlike anyone else is how they put it. Like he's like specifically his sense of humor, but also his demeanor would be like unlike anyone else, and it like feels so good. Does that make sense to you? Spot on. Okay, hold on. Good. They go, and that works well in his work. Like I think because we're just talking about career, they're like, let's bring up his career. That works well in his work. Like it's what keeps the gears turning is how they put it. And it keeps, do you understand this? Is he literally the one that keeps the gears turning in work? Like keeps things moving forward and forward and forward and forward. Does that make sense to you? It's okay if it doesn't. You tell me if it doesn't. Okay, perfect. Hold on. And they're like, but it's because of the way he is able to interact with people and like really get in there and be like, this is how this should be done. And he sees things that other people don't see. Even qualities of people that it's almost like, okay, if I don't say that, it's almost like if, somebody were about to leave or be fired, he could come in and be like, you can't do that. This person's like integral to the system sort of thing. Does that make sense to you? Yeah. Like he sees things, qualities in people that people don't see. And the minute he like says it out loud, it's like, oh, okay, Aaron's right. Is how they put it. Yeah. Does that make sense to you? Yeah. It's quite like a beautiful gift of his. It comes so easily to him that it's a little bit like, how do other people not see this? Or how do other people not see that in that person? Very good at reading people. Yes. Lovely good. Hold on. Fine. Not just reading people, but like seeing people for their unique qualities as well. Okay, lovely good. And then, okay, fine. I just kind of in my head was like, is there anything else that I need to say? And they just kind of bring up, I believe it's, yeah, fine, career again. And they're like, oh no, well for him, he just kind of needs to keep going.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's like it would feel good to him to just keep going and expanding. It's like, if he keeps going, things expand for him. And then that kind of keeps him going again and again and again and again. And that's like right for his soul and feels good. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They'd also, he's like he wouldn't even question switching things up right now anyways. It's just
Right, so true.
Like they put blinders on. Blinders. Like, so I'm like, should he go this way? Should he go? And they're like, blinders. Right. Okay, hold on. And then do you understand, I can understand that there would be grandparents for him stepping forward, but I think it's, lovely good. It's quite possibly dad's mom on the other side that comes in like quite close for him.
Yeah.
And there's like a tenderness there, like a little bit of like wanting to baby him. Does that make sense to you? And she just is like, that's like my little Aaron, and just like kind of starts to coddle him a little bit.
Sweet.
And just is like, I love him. Like, tell him, like, of all the people to like, all of his people who have passed away and are on the other side are of course there. Yeah. Quite possibly someone younger as well. But his grandmother kind of comes, his dad's mom kind of comes through like the closest, and is like, tell him that I came through. Yeah. So, but you don't have to. This reading's for you.
No, I will.
In like a very sweet grandmotherly way. Do you have any other questions?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, he's in data analytics software, so, you know,
I love it.
But he's like such a funny, fun guy that
Data
it's like, you wouldn't think
software.
that he's in that, but he does have the ability to just like be a lightness in the room. And
I love
you know what I mean? And
see
people from like a 10,000 foot view is like a great characteristic of his.
I like
so
that.
I think you're spot on.
I'm like, they're like trying to explain to me like these gears and stuff. I'm like, the minute you say data analytics software, I'm like, what does that look like?
In the future of AI, it's like he doesn't
they're
really
like,
want to leave.
Zero references for you, Hailey. This is as close as we're getting you. That's cool. Yeah. That's cool without me even knowing what that means. But I get like hints of it. They're like coming in trying to give me some more hints about what that would look like or feel like to be in that job, which is fine. I'll say that. They're like, Hailey's doing that because I like imagining what it's like to be doing, like, and people do this, right? Like, it's like, sometimes I'll be like, ooh, like, what is it like to be Lindsay? Like, what would it feel like for that to be a part of my job or my job or whatever? Like, we'll do that with people. It's another fun way of just like sinking into, is there something in that's for me? Like, is there a part of just like a little aspect of that's for me? Yeah. And if it like interests you enough, it's like, ooh, there's a direction I could take. And by direction, sometimes I literally mean look up. This is going to be a funny reference. Jacqueline Michelle Smith, who wrote that book, I'm Sorry I Cremated You. She was on the podcast, and I follow her on Substack now. And she wrote this like really beautiful article. And sometimes like I'll read through this, I don't know. It's like, but that one really like caught my attention. And you guys will just have to go read it because I don't want to like give too much away. But she mentions this like job that she had at her 20s. So I was like, that was interesting. And I like looked it up and like, what would it take to like do that? Yeah. To be that.
I love that.
Yeah. And I don't know, it just like gave me energy for the rest of the day. I was like, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to think about it. But it was like that is a next step, is like just like even looking it up and being like, oh, that's so cool. I know that's not for me, but that's so cool. Yes. Like, and even just like looking that up and like allowing myself to have a little bit more fun with imagining what it would take to do something like that, like kind of gave me a little boost of energy for my morning or quite possibly the rest of the day. But do you have any more questions for me? Or is there anything else that you like wanted to talk about?
I don't think so. I feel like this is just, I mean, I think you hit, I really wanted to ask about the, like skincare brand, that was like, that's been huge. And, I've been moving forward on it and I've been like, oh gosh, I can't wait to talk to Hailey about this and see what comes through. And I love that it came from like my dad and my nanny.
And And they just love you so much. I just want to tell you, like, the like impact of the people that I'm sitting with right now just feels like so good and important to me, and they're making me feel that way because that's how they want to come across to you. It's
nice.
like, and I love that you already have things like where you talk to them every day or feel them close by every day. So thank you so much for joining us and like sharing all of that with us. Will you please tell everybody where they can follow you and how they can find you?
Yes. I have a company that's Charleston focused. It's called Pack Supply. We are focused on hats and then some merch in the background, and just kind of on that nod of like, I've lived in Charleston for 10 years and always wanted, when friends and family came to visit, to kind of like grab a hat or, something that is like a reference or a nod to Charleston. And not like the traditional tacky tourist way. Do you know?
Yeah. You guys have seen them if you're here in Charleston. They're like, they're really cool. Sometimes they're flat rimmed, right?
Thank you. Like a rope hat, and like, we'll do locations. And then we've partnered with Jay Fletcher, who's like an incredible graphic designer. And he's done, we've got like 2 designs out from him, and there's more coming for the spring and summer, which are amazing. And we have like a really cool armadillo, because I'm obsessed with the fact that armadillos are migrating from Texas.
Tell me everything.
And like, it's kind of like, why are we all coming to the Carolinas and Tennessee, and why are we all transplanting here?
Yeah, we have a ton of armadillos out in Guatemala,
right?
Yeah,
and so I'm just obsessed with that. So I asked him to do an East Coast armadillo. And that's coming out. And so so you can find me there, in Instagram's Pack Supply. There's more coming this year, which is exciting.
Okay, tell me if I'm wrong. Do you also help people with products and stuff? Or are you trying to verge away from that?
No, I love it. My degree is in product development, and I've been doing it for like almost up to 20 years now, like just making merch and products. So it's like when people ask me to do it, it's like asking a doctor how much Tylenol you should take. Like, it's just like, will you take 10?
Like, it's so easy
just like
to you?
Yeah. So if someone's like, hey, can you do this or that? I can just rattle off. I mean, it's just at the top of my brain. Yeah. Like, how we could do it. What do you need? Well, like, how many are you thinking? Oh, I have like 3 people that could do that for you. It's just there. It's not at all a burden to me. So I'm happy to help people. And especially when people
specifically
are like,
me.
Yes. Like, especially people like you're right, who have the best style and aesthetic. I'm like, yes, please. But I mean, that's why I'm like, I'm happy to do it. And also, it is like a way of like getting your name out there and product, maybe it's a restaurant or maybe it's a clothing store, whatever you need. If I can't do it, I can always point you in this direction, because now I have colleagues that have been doing it for all this time, so I can kind of
and we can take this part out if you want. If you're like, I don't want like a million people reaching out to me about this, but like, could someone that's listening to the podcast reach out to you? Like, is this a service that you'd be like, oh, like for me, for example, I'd be like, hey, like, and we've talked, because I reached out to you a few months ago being like, I want to get this thing started. I know nothing about product. I'm clearly very like a service-based industry.
Yes.
And when it comes to product, I have zero background in that.
Yeah, that's like because my parents were teachers. Like, I have this deep-rooted like wanting to help and teach. Like, I'm like, tell me what you're doing first, though. I can be a little like guarded over friends that are doing things like, what did they quote you? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, how much are you doing? I want to make sure that it's quality. Like, I started at Victoria's Secret in my 20s in like quality and regulatory compliance. So like, I have all that want of like, you're putting your name on something. You want it to be amazing and wonderful and high quality. And so I want to help friends. And anyone really that reaches out to do something on that track. Like, anyone can make something. Yeah. And in a world where consumerism is going rampant, it's like, let's be focused on making something quality that isn't going in the trash, right? Like, what are we making? Why? And then I can help you with the who and how, and how much it costs and who should make it for you. So if you want to reach out to me, at PAX, if I can't help you, I will absolutely guide you to who can. And I have great friends running production companies in the U.S. and, outside of the U.S. Like, China and Sri Lanka, you name it, Taiwan, Korea.
I was like, because you're going to get people that listen to the podcast and be like, I am doing this thing and want merch or want products or what. Yeah. So reach out to Pax, but then she might like lead you to the next right person.
Exactly.
Right? Okay, cool.
Yeah. If I can't help you, I think I can find someone who can.
Cool. Thank you, Courteney.
Thank you. This is so great.
Thank you, Courteney, for coming on for that part 2. And thank you guys for listening. I hope that you guys liked it. Please remember to like, subscribe, send this to a friend. I can't wait for more people to listen to these episodes. And again, you can find Pax on Instagram at Pax Supply or on their website, pax-supply.com. Let me know what you get. I'll post a few of the items that I have and some of my favorites in my stories on Instagram, which is at Hailey Low Fennel. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll see you next week.